This is the Truth Network.
Bible Wonders of Habakkuk. The mystery of the 17th, or the pay verse of the first chapter of Habakkuk. And as I have just so enjoyed this chapter and the lesson in Hebrew that it is in so many different ways, that I really have learned so much, I now wonder, is the 17th verse more in what he did not say than what he did say? As I can tell you from looking at what Rashi had to say and what Matthew Henry has to say, and there's 40,000. I mean, if you look at all the verses, that are connected to this verse as far as cross-references, oh my goodness, I mean, almost the whole book of Jeremiah, not almost the whole book, but several chapters in Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah are all considered to be cross-references to this verse. Yet it's a very short verse. And again, I wonder more if it's about what he didn't say than what he did say. But I'll read it in English and we'll get into it. And so here you go. It's the pay verse, which has to do with, God's provision comes so often through the letter pay, and as he spoke things into existence. So here it is. Shall they therefore empty their net and not spare continually to slay the nations? In other words, from my standpoint, Habakkuk is asking God, he actually asked him at the very beginning, how long, Lord, is this shenanigan going to continue to go on, that these people are going to continually slay the nation and not show any compassion? And so I studied it and looked at it and thought about it. But the thing that's particularly peculiar about it, from my perspective, and the mystery of it, is that although the other verses seem to be just line up perfectly with the 145th Psalm or with the Hebrew alphabet, when it comes to this particular verse, the 17th verse, there is no pay, even though it's the pay verse. There's no pay in it, and nothing that would clearly point to the letter pay, except, again, what he did not say. And so I think what's helpful to me, or just really helpful to me, and I highlighted the 145th Psalm, is the pay verse of the 145th Psalm speaks to what I think Habakkuk really wanted to know. And so that would be simply that thou openest thine hand and satisfy the desires of every living thing. That's the 16th verse, because it's the pay verse of the 145th Psalm. As we've talked about, King David did not have a nun verse because the nun was fallen. And so here what he's saying, and it says again throughout the pay section of the 119th Psalm, is that God provides things by speaking them into existence. And so when he says, thou openest thine hand, the word open has to do with the letter pay. And so when he says, thou openest thy hand and satisfy the desire of every living thing, clearly Habakkuk is saying, I really, really desire that this would be over, and that we would live, and once again, things be according to your law, because you might remember his concern that the law had slacked, and judgment does not go forth. In fact, wrong judgment proceedeth, was Habakkuk's complaint to God. And so he's basically getting back, from my standpoint, what he did not say, because I think it was just, this is my opinion, I'll have to ask Habakkuk when I get up there, but I think what he was doing was he knew, as he was writing this verse, what the pay insignia, what the pay idea is of God's provision, and he knew that this was the pay verse, and so he was pretty much, once again, in my view, saying, how long? How long is all this going to go on, Lord? And I think that it's absolutely spectacular myself to know that he had such faith in God to leave it there. And that was one thing that Matthew Henry said. It was similar, as Matthew Henry said, to the end of the 74th Psalm, the 22nd verse. Matthew Henry says that this is kind of where this goes. Arise, O God, and plead thy own cause. In other words, the prophet leaves it in God's very, very capable hands, and that God will speak into existence exactly what needs to happen, and he did. And he did, as Habakkuk knew he would. And so I love the lesson in Hebrew that Habakkuk has taught me through this. I think I understand the Psalmic better than I ever did. I certainly and understood the nun better than I ever had and the hey better than I ever did as I've gone through this. And I think, okay, God, now I think I understand. For me personally, like God called me to this study, right? That I asked him, where are we going? And he said he wanted me to study Habakkuk. And this is where he landed me in that, oh my goodness, when it comes to, the idea of trusting God, I mean, he will speak things in his time and when it's right and when everything's best, in spite of the fact that it looks like all is black for the home team, it still is completely in God's hands when that's going to work out. And so I don't know about your life, but in my life, there are so many things I would like to know. How long, oh Lord? Just like Habakkuk started out this, oh Lord, how long? And David did again in the 13th Psalm, oh Lord, how long? And so a lot of times, we just want to shorten the pain, but God understands the process, right? And like I said, there are so many things in my life that I know that I just would not grow if I didn't have to constantly go back to him to get some answers. And that's what Habakkuk did here, is he went to God to get the answer. And because if he gave us the answers at the beginning and, we would take off and go work on the solution, and he'd be going, hey, sport, what about the fellowship? Where'd you go? Well, fortunately for us, it's waiting on the Lord that means so very much as we get gathered in and we grow closer, and we're put at this point where, I like Peter said, where would we go, Lord? If we're going to go somewhere else, where would you go? Well, here we go. Habakkuk left it there very much, saying, Lord, I trust you because I know that you fill at the desire of every living thing. I mean, look at that pay verse of the 145th Psalm, and you realize that God has got this covered, and he knows what it is that you really desire. Unfortunately, for those who desired power, the Nebuchadnezzars and his group, they got that. They didn't realize what they were getting, what they get it. For those who desired murder, they got that. Unfortunately, there's people that desire things that they should not have, and eventually God does let them have it. And eventually, for many, unfortunately, they'll be given a godless world. They desire not to have God, and so that desire is going to be met. My challenge with this verse and with this idea, as I sat there and thought about it, is God, help me to desire. Because if you're going to meet the desire of every living thing, help my desire be for you. Help my desire to be more intimate with you, for you to reveal more to me, so that I could walk in your commandments, right? And be your disciple, is that is truly my hope. And I thank you so much for studying this first chapter of Habakkuk with me. I don't know about you, but I am terribly excited about the second chapter. And again, if you think about it and pray about God spreading this podcast, I pray that if he puts it on your heart, somebody that you might share this with that likes this kind of study, likes Hebrew and that kind of thing, that you would email them the link to this podcast. So thank you again so much for listening, and have a great day.